entry grade, high grade, real grade, master grade, perfect grade, mega size, super deformed, RE100, full mechanics, which is not to be confused with full mechanics, the other one, and the list goes on. There really is no shortage of Gunpla lines, and yet I think Bandai can still go further. Because here's 5 that I've always wanted Bandai to make. At least the 5 most realistic ones, because no matter how much I'd love to see it, I don't think we're ever going to get a 1/12 scale line with fully featured cockpits that you can put Figmas in. And let's start with something that might be a bit controversial. Non-transformable mobile armor modes of transformable mobile suits. Hear me out. I used to be very much in favor of transformable mobile suits being fully transformable, even as a high grade. And while I do still think that it is a great showcase of Bandai's technical know-how to cram a complex transformation into a small model kit, certain model kits from the Macross franchise have changed my views significantly. For anyone who's unfamiliar with the series, the main mechs used throughout the various Macross animes are called Valkyries, and they can typically transform into 3 modes: Fighter, Batroid, and Gerwalk. So of course, there are many model kits that are transformable, but they also have non-transformable model kits. At first, I thought this was a bit lame, because come on, you have a mech that is famously transformable, and you're going to cheap out on the transformation? But then I put some more thought into it, and I realized that this approach actually has a lot of advantages. By not having to put a transformation in, they can focus on putting in extra whistles and bells that otherwise would have been difficult or would have put the structural integrity of the model kit in danger. I'm sure many of you now have the perfect mental image of what I'm referring to. And another important thing they could focus on would be a more streamlined and anime-accurate transformed state. Now, credit where credit is due. In a lot of cases, Bandai does an excellent job of giving us mobile suits that look great in both modes. But oftentimes, some sacrifices, however small, just have to be made. And let's face it, how many of us regularly transform our mobile suits versus just picking the mode you like best and then never touching it again? And since we're on the topic of fighters, something that I've wanted for a long time is a high-grade line dedicated to the many vehicles in Gundam, in 1/144 scale. Yes, we have had the X models in the past, but they weren't ideal. They were expensive, still needed a lot of extra paintwork, and you could even say that they were too detailed to be displayed next to the high-grade models they were supposed to go with. So I would really want to see the idea of getting Gunpla of combat vehicles revamped in high grade. We did get a few one-offs like the Type 61 or the hover truck set, but there are still so many awesome vehicles in Gundam that deserve a model kit. The Saberfish, Flymanta, Petite mobile suits, this unnamed thing from Unicorn, the linear tanks and attack helicopters from Gundam Seed, and the list goes on. And now, let's go a bit bigger. Perfect grades. They're the pinnacle of Bandai's engineering and come with a price tag to match. But there is one big problem. Because they are such technological marvels, there's not a lot of them out there, with new releases being multiple years apart. And this means that only a very small portion of mobile suits will ever even stand a chance of getting a perfect grade, let alone actually getting one. And one thing that I always find a bit unfortunate is not being able to pair up a lead Gundam with either its main rival or its main partner machine. And since it would be impossible for some rivals to get a perfect grade, I think the next best thing would be an RE100 type deal for mobile suits that would pair nicely with an existing perfect grade. Think, for example, the GPO2 with the GPO1, the Aegis with the Strike, the Infinite Justice with the Strike Freedom, etc. And while I will admit that the first 3 entries might have been a bit wishful, with these last 2, I'm legit wondering why Bandai hasn't already made them into actual things. Giant mobile armors, they suffer a similar fate as perfect grades. They're expensive, and only the most popular of popular even stand a chance of getting made. Looking at the high grade line, we only have a handful of units like the Neo Zeon, Dendrobia, Meteor units, and tactical arms, and just forget about any of the bigger scales. So the only option to ever get mobile armors like the Big Zam, Big Ro, Elma, Zamzaza, Gelsgate, Destroy Gundam, Shamblo, etc. is by going smaller. And in the early 2000s, Bandai did exactly that with the high-grade mechanics line. These were 1 550th scale kits, which cut down the price significantly, but unfortunately they never expanded this line past the 0083 mobile armors. So I would love for this line to either come back as is, or be revived in a slightly more impressive 1 400 scale. While this would make them more expensive, I think the extra size wouldn't just be good for extra details and gimmicks, but it would also make them pair up nicely with the already existing 1 400 scale Gundam collection figures. And finally then, I kept the best for last. Or worst, depending on who you ask. Gundam Girls. Gundam wasn't just a pioneer of the real robot genre, but also of the Mecha Mizume genre. And to this day, we are still getting new designs, with Mika Akitaka being the driving force behind them. And while yes, we have seen some Mecha Mizume kits from Gundam, they are limited to the very old Armored Lady line and a handful of designs that appeared in the Build series. What I want to see are the original designs turned into model kits. Because when you think about it, we literally have all of the ingredients ready to go. We have a plethora of designs, and Bandai has also come a very long way since the nightmare-inducing Super Fumina. Just look at the recent Suletta and Miorine Gunplas, or even 30-Minute Sisters. And on top of that, lines like the 30-Minute Sisters and Kotobukiya's Frame Arms Girl have shown us that there is more than enough market demand for mech girls. Make it happen, Bandai. And those were the Gunpla lines that I would love to see them make. Let me know in the comments down below what you think about them and what lines that you would love to see. As always, a big thank you to the Patreon supporters. I hope everyone watching has a great day, and I'll see you all next time.